Welcome to the Utah Assistive Technology Program's latest informative video, Traveling Blind, Orientation, and Mobility. This production was made possible by the Utah Assistive Technology Program, located in the Center for Persons with Disabilities at Utah State University. Information is provided by Jennifer Kennedy of the Utah State Office of Rehabilitation's Division of Services for the Blind and Visually Impaired. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Kennedy, cane travel instructor at the Division of Services for the Blind and Visually Impaired with the State of Utah Office of Rehabilitation. I've been teaching in the field for 10 years, and I'm really excited to be able to share with you about how blind people travel and the training by which they went through in order to have that experience. So the first question everybody always says, what is cane travel or orientation mobility? Orientation mobility is the term that was given to the education field when teaching cane travel. Cane travel is just that, blind people traveling with canes. There are two ways in which blind travelers often travel, and that is with or without someone. So independent travel versus some kind of guided travel. I'm primarily going to talk today about independent travel and how a traveler will get to that point. In order to become an orientation mobility instructor or cane travel teacher, you can do it one of two ways. First way is through an education system. There are a little over a dozen schools that offer a master's degree in orientation and mobility, which you then go through a process to become certified after you've taught for many years, similar to becoming a teacher within an education school system or college professor. The other way you can do it is through agency training, where you spend thousands of hours studying under a travel teacher. I was fortunate enough to attend Louisiana Tech University and received my master's degree in orientation and mobility in 2008. There are two tools that most blind people bounce between when they're traveling, and that is the white cane or a dog guide. Dog guides can be obtained after learning how to travel with a cane, because the most important thing a traveler must do before they take on any of these things is learn how to actually travel and orient themselves. A dog will not do that for you. In fact, it would be a situation where if you did not know all the traffic patterns, all the rules, and be able to interpret the information the dog was giving you, you now have two brains that are confused instead of just one. Who can benefit from orientation mobility? Anybody who has a visual impairment. In other words, they don't see the way that the healthy eye may see. They can start getting orientation mobility training at any age. So if you were born blind, you may start to see a paraprofessional in your school system early on. We even encourage parents to give blind children a cane in their toy box. This way the child gets used to grabbing the cane and using it to feel around, and allowing them to notice the information that they can gather as well. It feels normal right off the bat. So the parents are the very first teacher of the cane to a student. The cane has evolved over time. It started with wood, went to aluminum, graphite, fiberglass, and carbon fiber. The length of it also evolved over time, starting near the sternum, kind of working its way up towards the chin, the nose, and as you can see, mine is towards my eyebrows, and that's based off of the speed at which someone walks. The longer the cane, the more likely they are to have more reaction time. There are two ways in which a person can receive orientation mobility training. The first is field instruction. That's where an instructor such as myself would go to the home or the school and teach things in an environment. Very often that's something that happens on a weekly basis, bi-weekly, or monthly, and it really depends on the client. It doesn't have to just be someone who was born blind. Very often, blindness happens later in life. You may not be in a situation where you have been traveling without vision for very long and you don't know what is possible. Where I work at the Training Services for the Blind in Salt Lake City, we actually serve ages 18 to 88. So if you can walk, we're happy to have you come in and work with us. There are also two ways in which we learn, and that is through a route process where we kind of memorize what we're doing and we have someone work with us to explore an environment in a systematic way, or a discovery learning, structure discovery, where we have the student work, very often not in their home environment, learning how to interpret information and feedback so that when they move about, They don't always need to have an orientation mobility specialist come to their home. This type of training usually is a little bit more intensive in duration, as well as often takes longer. Depending on what kind of training you may receive as a blind person, you may also elect to do what's called immersion training. Immersion training is where someone may use a pair of sleep shades or blindfolds in order to help them block out information. Now, if you're already blind, why would you not want to be able to use your sight? Well, what I tell my students is simply this: you're already the expert at being able to see. I really can't teach you how to see any better. What I can do is I can teach you how to use the 4 senses that you haven't spent as much time focusing on: touch, hearing, smell, and every once in a while, the sense of taste. We don't overnight pay attention to those things. We have to actually teach the brain, hey, this is what a door sounds like. This is what a window sounds like. This is what grass actually feels like when we can't actually see it. Very often, someone who has a visual impairment may have vision that tricks them. I was one of those. I lost my sight at 15, and what I found was I had just enough vision to get me in trouble. So when I would walk down the street, a shadow would pop out, and I wouldn't know, was it an obstacle or was it a shadow? And I would just stop. And the only way that I could figure out whether or not it was an obstacle or as a shadow was to slowly creep through it. That's really scary, to not be able to rely on the vision that you have. And that's very often why someone may choose to go for the immersion route. That way they can get used to traveling without any of that information that interferes and really focus on what the other information is that's available to them, primarily through hearing and sound. So let's talk about the white cane. The white cane has 3 main jobs. Its first job is to protect somebody. So whether it happens to be that they're finding an obstacle, whether you're looking for a clearing, that's why we use it. It's a safety thing. Also, it gives feedback. That's our second job. So whether it's I want to be able to tell that I'm on a smooth surface, a texture change, a sloping action, a drop-off action, maybe I want to be able to tell where the opening for a door is to clear my body. That's that feedback. And I can only learn to interpret that feedback with practice. It's not overnight. The third job is the one that very often people struggle with, and that's the identification. Identification. Why do I need people to know that I'm a blind person? Pretty simple. You want to make sure that you're letting people know that there is indeed a action as to our rationale as to why you may or may not be responding to them. Perfect example. When I first met my husband, he and I were introduced by a mutual friend, and I didn't have a cane with me at the time. He tried to shake my hand, and I didn't respond back. He kind of looked at my friend and thought to himself, man, what's wrong with her? She's just cold. He saw me a week or so later, and I actually had a cane with me that time. The light bulb went on. Oh, she's not rude at all. She just can't see me. How much easier it would have been for him had it not been for that identification mishap. When I go to a bank, I want people to know there's a reason that I need them to help me fill out my deposit slip. When I go to the restaurant, there's a reason that I'm asking them to help me read a menu. I don't have to explain to every person I meet I can't see it when I have that white cane. Very often the white cane for people is a real struggle because somehow to them it signals shame, embarrassment, or failure, especially for people who haven't been used to having a cane, whether it's because they weren't given a cane at an early age or because they lost their vision. I try to work with my students so that they are the ones that develop the attitude about the cane and that the cane doesn't need to define them. When I think about my cane here, I think about excitement, freedom, and independence, the number of places that I visited because of this cane. I was able to go and do. I've been able to go out and shop and get things as a surprise. I've lived in 3 different states, sometimes even all by myself prior to my husband joining me on a move. I couldn't have done any of that without my white cane. What an exciting tool to have. It's not a symbol of shame at all. It's my best friend. So with the canes, you may also have a complementary set of tools. You may have somebody who travels using a compass. You may have somebody who's traveling using a GPS. You may even have somebody who's traveling using some type of device to do echolocation. Sometimes you'll hear them called clickers. We're going to talk a little bit more about echolocation, or the ability to hear obstacles in your way once we get outdoors. The cane, when it was developed As I mentioned earlier, it had a variety of tools, but there's a specific reason why I like to teach with the cane that I have in my hand here, and the reason I, as a traveler, like to travel with it myself. It's a really, really lightweight cane. I don't want my hand to get tired as I'm traveling around. I want to be able to do that 7 miles, getting to that Sonic hamburger that I did in training and not have a cramp in my hand. I also want to be able to have a nice lightweight long cane. So the more parts a cane has, the more likely it is to become heavier. I also want to make sure that my students can't fold the cane up, like the canes that I'm going to show you here in a little bit. It's a one-piece cane. You have to deal with that symbol. You have to deal with how does it define you, or are you going to define that cane? When a person is looking for training, they need to figure out whether or not they want to do it in their home environment, or would they like to come to a place and do it very, very frequently. I mentioned earlier that you can have home instruction that may only happen once a month. There are also places all over the country, I work at the one in Salt Lake City, where we have a comprehensive 6 to 9 month program. You receive 2 hours of orientation and mobility cane travel training every day. That's a lot of hours. So by the time you're done with our program, you can go anywhere you want in the country. You can take the bus, you can take the light rail, you can cross the street, you can get your job, and you can go wherever you want to go with an understanding of what it is that you're looking for and being able to travel. I like this approach. It worked better for me personally. I received training when I was in high school after I lost my sight, and it was enough to get me around to be safe, but it wasn't enough to empower me to go out and explore life on my own. It's funny when I think about it now, I was a prisoner in my own dorm room. I got to a point where when I didn't know how to get myself reoriented on an independent travel assignment to a cafeteria, I would just get lost and get frustrated and cry and give up. I became a prisoner in my own dorm room. Can you imagine a college kid who doesn't leave their dorm room? The only time I ever left my dorm room was to go answer the door when Papa John showed up, because it was way easier than having, say, to travel across the cafeteria and the embarrassment of getting lost on the way there. When blind people are out traveling, you may notice that they're out and they're not quite walking in that straight line that you're used to. That's because they're gathering information through other receptors besides vision. So don't get too worried right away if it looks like somebody might be exploring the environment a little bit differently than you do. Chances are pretty good they're just gathering information as they go along. At the training center in Salt Lake City, we focus on cane training. If a student wants to pursue a dog guide, that's an awesome thing to do, but it's something at which, as I mentioned earlier, you need to go to a special school and receive training for once you've got really good mobility skills. I mentioned the lightweight material that the fiberglass cane offers. It's also very flexible, so that as I bump into things or I get it caught in a crack, it'll bounce back and it will snap. The other thing that I like to have on my cane is I like to have a metal tip. You'll notice that this tip has a rubber stopper on it that will hold it. And so as I tap along, I'm going to be able to collect information. Think of the cane tip made out of metal like a radio antenna. A radio antenna conducts sound waves. When it gets those sound waves, it uses the transmitter to then produce the music that we're all used to listening to. The metal cane tip is the same way. It's conducting those vibrations of sound to me. I'm the transmitter. I can tell what the information is that's coming to my ear and translate it that way. Or I may be able to feel the vibrations coming through my cane and be able to decide, oh, that's what it is, instead of through my ears. So it's a really, really handy tool to be able to be ambidextrous between your ears and your hands. A student may also decide that they want to receive training not using training shades or the sleep shades that I mentioned earlier. They may choose that they would prefer to do it using the vision that they have. So some blind travelers will use, say, a special kind of sunglasses to cut down on glare. They may be able to see better with their eye condition using a tinted color such as a plum or a green. They may use a hat to kind of cut down on the glare as well. They may also simply be somebody who struggles with traveling only during certain lighting conditions. And they're just not that concerned about the variety of lighting conditions. For me, it didn't work, not traveling using those variations as I mentioned. The training centers that have comprehensive training programs use both approaches. We call those the immersion approach and the low vision approach. Another tool that some blind travelers will use is a flip chart. And a flip chart can be used to help communicate information. In this case, this says number 217. That is the bus by which I am looking for. This can be really helpful for folks who are hard of hearing, as well as who may be mute, or they may even be deaf. If a bus is pulling up, I need to be able to communicate to the driver what bus I'm looking for. And these type of flip charts can change based off of what bus I'm picking up. There are cards that can be designed by an orientation mobility instructor, even just a family member or the traveler themselves, that they can use, that they may hold up, that can indicate to the public they want to cross the street and to please tap them. So if you happen to see a traveler while you're out and about holding up one of these signs, take a peek at it. See if it's something that you can help them with. It will be very specific in what they want you to do to be able to help them. A lot of the time what they say is, please tap if you can help. And the traveler knows where he or she needs to be. Somebody who's hard of hearing may be able to talk to you, but may have difficulty collecting the information from you that you're giving them, whether it's through hand gestures or whether it's through verbal gestures. Just let the traveler kind of guide you and be able to help them, have you help them. So canes, why have a variety of canes? I think canes are a lot like shoes. When we go out to dinner, we might wear one pair of shoes. When I'm at work teaching, walking around in my Nikes, they're not the same shoes that I use when I go out to that fancy dinner. So I think canes are very similar. My long cane, that's one piece, my straight cane is the cane that I personally prefer to travel with. However, there are times in which I want a cane that's more convenient, and convenient meaning that it can fold up. Now I can find a place to store my straight cane just about anywhere that I want. But say I want to go to a baseball game and I really don't want my cane left on the ground to collect peanut shells. Or maybe I'm going to an amusement park and I want to be able to keep my cane with me as I go up and down the roller coasters. So I'm going to choose one of two options. I can have a folding cane or I can have a telescoping cane. The folding cane has multiple joints in it. Each of these joints has an elastic cord that holds it together. They also have a little rubber stopper in between them on some of the canes. And so by doing this, I have the opportunity to have a cane that will fold up real easy. This is also my spare tire cane. When I'm out traveling, I want to make sure I have an extra cane with me. That way, if something were to happen to my trusty traveling cane all the time, say get shut in a car door, snapped by a bicycle, all these things have happened to me, I have a cane with me. It's not reasonable to carry around a straight cane all the time. So I might have this in my backpack. Now, with each of the pieces of this cane, I'm going to lose information. Notice how there's this gap and there's an elastic cord. If I were to take this cane and I'm tapping it, I can actually feel the cord vibrate inside of that. It doesn't bother everybody, but it bothers me tremendously as I'm walking, so I prefer not to use the folding cane as my main cane. However, there are some travelers that really like to use a cane that folds up all the time. It's important that when a traveler is picking out a cane, they make sure that they pick the right size. I usually tell people who've never used a cane that based off of your walk, you can take your height and subtract 5 inches or somewhere between their bottom lip and their nose. When I'm working with a student and we're trying to decide where that should happen, we'll start with it between the bottom lip and their nose, and then if they're a little bit slower paced, we might subtract 2 inches. If they're a little bit faster paced like I am, we might add 2 inches. I'm 60 inches tall, my cane is 59 inches tall, so that's where we came up with it. The second type of collapsing cane is what we call a telescoping cane. It slid out as I was pulling it. It does not have the rubber that goes through it. However, as I'm walking along, if I don't have it pulled out all the way, it may it may find its way inside of itself and it starts to fold in. That can really bother people as well. However, when I'm walking, I personally don't have it sliding in too often. But those are the 3 types of canes that most people are choosing between. So now that we've found out what our cane choices are, let's talk about the actual mechanics of using the cane. First one, moving it. When I have this cane, I can take it and I can extend it. And I can extend the cane out in our long position, also known as the open palm. The open palm has the hand facing up, And I'm actually going to use my back 3 fingers to open and close. This is why we call it the open palm technique. So that as my cane rotates off to the right and I squeeze the cane, it will move to the left. So open and close, open and close. The goal is to try to keep the cane centered in the body. Open and close. I can do the same thing if I'm a left-handed person. The only difference is when my cane swings to the left, my back fingers will open up. And when it swings to the right, the back fingers will close again. You can practice this motion by using your index finger and your thumb and just taking a little stress ball and squeezing your hands back and forth. It's also the motion that you use when you're cracking a walnut with a nutcracker. I can also use my cane in what we call the pencil technique or the shorter technique. I've taken my cane and I've choked up on it. And I have my index finger and my thumb over top of it, again, making that little O shape. And so as I'm taking in my cane, my fingers are going to do more work this time. My hand is a little less centered than it was before, but it's still able to move back and forth and clear my path. I often get the question, well, how do you know how wide to swing it? What's the widest part of your body? For most people, it's their shoulders, and that's the length by which I want to make sure that my cane is moving back and forth. One really cool thing about having a long cane is that I can always take that cane and I can turn it into a short cane by simply flipping between long and short, long and short. And I can do that flawlessly with practice as I'm walking along. Now, let's say we've given somebody a cane that has only come up to about their shoulder height. So if they want to have the opportunity to reach out beyond where that cane is, they now have to extend their arm. This is an unnatural position for the arm to be extended. You also notice that my shoulder is slightly slumped. So if I want that reach, why not just give me a cane that I can have the same thing? I can keep this arm nice and relaxed. I don't have to use too much, and I can just make sure that it clears my path. We also have something that's called staying in step. When the cane swings to the right side of the body, that means that the left foot goes forward. When the cane swings to the left side of the body, the right foot goes forward. That's because the cane happens to have cleared our path prior to the foot ever stepping there. And that's where we're really trying to use that feedback to be able to help out. I hope this has been helpful in understanding what exactly a white cane does, how do we get educated in using a white cane, and most importantly, excited about the independent travel of blind people. I look forward to spending the next few segments outside with you. So we're outside today taking a look at how the cane gives us feedback in the area. 3 jobs of the cane. 1, to provide feedback. So feedback happens whether it's through sound or it happens through the sense of touch. I may also decide that I need more information based off of the area. Currently, we're in campus time, happens to be kind of slow in the summer, so I may not need as much reaction time if I were here, say, in the middle of finals week. There's too many people, I can't move as fast. So the long cane position is where the cane is extended out kind of in the center of the body. We also call this the open palm because by using the open palm technique, we're getting our fingers to do most of the work. And I have an open and closing reaction that makes that cane move. Gives me about a 5-foot radius. That radius will depend on how long your cane is. The taller you are, the longer the cane will be. Also, how fast do you walk? If you don't walk terribly quickly, we don't need as much time to react to things that come up in front of us. That feedback that we're getting will then protect us. We stop when we find something that changes, whether it's sound or texture. In a crowded situation, I'm going to switch my cane to what we call the pencil technique or the short technique, where I can take my cane and I'm still going to be able to clear my path. I want to be right outside of my shoulder or right outside the widest part of my body. And I'll be able to maneuver in such a way that I could get around shopping carts, busy students with their large backpacks, and Christmas shopping at the mall right before Christmas Eve hits. When I'm outside, I need to figure out what kind of feedback do I really want. Do I need more sound? Do I need more texture? Or do I want to have both? So I can do that in one of these 3 ways. The first way we use the cane is what we call constant contact. What this does is it gives a lot of vibration that's coming up through the shaft of the cane. And it's giving me a little bit of sound variation right now, just a little bit. You'll hear 7th North behind us. And so situation where I have a lot of traffic just like that, it might not be really effective. I may get a lot less of that sound, so I may want more of this tactile feedback. Another place I may want that is weather conditions. In the rain, you're going to be really hard pressed to be able to hear a lot of the echoes, which I'll demonstrate here. So I may use a little more of this constant sliding motion. And I can do all three of these types of cane motions with both the open palm as well as the pencil technique. The second thing I might look at is it an uneven surface? So say I'm walking through a playground full of gravel, maybe I'm walking in the grass, or if we're lucky enough to be at the beach, I'm gonna have my cane so that it comes off the ground just a little over an inch. I may also be in a neighborhood where the cane might find those uneven sidewalks. The trees that provide us with wonderful shade often lift up the sidewalk. I joke with my students who complain about crummy sidewalks. If you don't like the crummy sidewalks, then you must not like the trees that are growing under them. They usually stop at that. Now, you'll notice that while I was talking, I kind of started doing both. This is what we call tap slide. And the idea of tap slide is that I can get both the echo that I want, and I can get a little more of that feedback. It's going to be up to the traveler as far as which technique they want to use and when. And they should be fluent enough in all of these techniques that they can change it when they're on demand. And I'll demonstrate that in a little bit. I'm going to walk up. You'll notice my cane got very quiet there as I found the grass. So sometimes when we react to a surface change, it may be based off of both things. In that case, I could feel the spongy nature of the grass no longer on the sidewalk, as well as the cane sound totally disappeared. That could happen if I was traveling in a snowbank, which, as we all know, Utah has lots of availability of travel in that lovely snow. So let's talk about a little more with echoes. How can we use echoes? I often hear people say, well, you're blind. You must have ultrasonic hearing. I'm sorry, I'm here to tell you guys, Daredevil didn't happen overnight. It happened because of training that was done. So we as blind travelers don't necessarily come with sonic ears in hand. We have to develop those tools. And that's why people take cane travel or orientation mobility, is they need to learn how to fine-tune the information that's coming and how to interpret it. So when we're talking about echoes, echoes are things that help us allow a visualization of space. So am I in an open area or a closed area? Right now I can tell that there's a bicyclist that went past me, but because of the direction at which he was traveling, he's not going to be in my way. But I also could tell, just because of the gap between me and him, that there was enough space there. And that's also another way that we use sound, is gauging where people are in relationship to us. I do a little trick, and I like to call it the 180 echo. And what that does is it often can help you when entering into a large open space. We can tell that the space is open, maybe it's the breeze, or we notice that there isn't something right next to our ear. If you were to walk into your house and close your eyes, if you were to get closer to a wall, you would start to kind of have this sense like, ooh, something's coming up. That's the beginning of what we call echolocation, is being able to feel that pressure change, and then we fine tune it with our ears. So the 180 echo is a trick where when we go into a wide open space, I want to really localize where the closest thing to me is. A grocery store parking lot is a perfect place. It's a wide, vast ocean of asphalt. So I'm going to use my cane to 3, to 2, to 1, to noon, to 11, to 10, to 9. Immediately I can tell two things. One building is closer to me than the other, just off the fact that the bouncing nature from my right varied quite a bit to my left or to the east of me. You'll also notice that the sound changed just slightly. Totally disappeared. That little edge sound actually sounds different than hitting far solid concrete. Okay? So sometimes in addition to the sound of that bouncing back, you'll have other context clues, whether it's quiet or not quiet. So we're going to go towards the building just a little bit to kind of give you an idea of, as we're walking, how I might sense that I'm coming up on that structure and how I may change the way I'm holding my cane. So I noticed that the sound is getting a little tighter, so I'm going to pull my cane into a pencil technique. And sure enough, there is a building structure piece, gravel area, as well as a blockade off in front of us. Now, we don't always know what that blockade is until we get to it, but it's important that you at least have the opportunity to do that. Do you always have to do a 180-degree echo test to figure that out? No, but this is how I start to work with students on developing that skill of being able to hear the open versus the closed area. When sliding your cane, it makes it a lot harder to hear that sound. So I'm going to turn back towards that building again. You can kind of hear the echo ricocheting a little bit, but it doesn't give it quite nearly as crisp as it did when I was doing the tap slide. As I come back out, that shallow sound, it's just a small variant. It's just a small shallow sound. But that's usually the sound that indicates that there's a curb line. Students don't normally hear that right away. That's something that we have to pick up on, and I'll talk a little bit about that once we get to our street crossing components. We're going to talk a little bit about how we use sounds outside of echolocation for entering, exiting buildings, and a little bit of problem solving. One of the misconceptions that people have about blind travelers is that we don't know what we're doing. So for example, if I'm walking and I'm coming to physical contact with an obstacle, I may really want to find that obstacle. It may be a landmark. Landmarks refer to items that are permanent and very unique. They're different than clues. A clue is something that I may be able to put together, helping me say, oh, this might be it. And we'll talk a bit more about clues as we get closer to our building. If I am problem solving, chances are pretty good that I'm still moving as I'm problem solving. If you happen to come across a blind person who just happens to be perhaps walking in a direction that you're unclear of, rather than assuming they don't know where they are, you can approach them and introduce yourself. Hi, I'm Jennifer. Do you need anything? Are you okay? Do you need any assistance? Those are good ways to stop and ask somebody if you're concerned. We also are able to solicit your help as you walk by if we need some information about what we're doing. But chances are we're exploring our environment and we're looking for something specific in our environment, whether it be a physical thing, a sound, or even in this case, the heat of the sun. So currently I'm facing south, and I know that because I can feel the sun off on my left cheek. It's about 10 o'clock on this very lovely Thursday afternoon. We teach that sun cue because it's a real constant. Traffic is our other cue. We know that our street behind us, 700 North, is to the north. So I can use that even if I'm not facing it as a way to help me say, oh yeah, great, I am still traveling in that southerly direction. So I'm going to go back into my long technique because I don't know this area very well. So I want to have more time to react to what I'm doing as I make my way towards the front of the building. So I find a structure, and as I'm finding it, I might begin to do what we call shorelining. And shorelining is where you find an obstacle and your cane will stay constant with it. So maybe this is the front of the building. Nope, the shoreline has broken away, which means I should not turn that direction. Often if people do too much shorelining, they turn away from things that they don't want. I also notice, okay, my sun is still behind me, which means I'm turning west, and I know that my entrance is to the west of where we are currently. So I'm going to keep going to a clear path. Oh, I'm at a dead end. I can feel that there's no longer solid, things are uneven, which says, all right, I need to come back out, and I'm going to continue to shoreline. Gravel usually is not found at the back of a building. I like to call it landscaping, a sign of life or civilization. So what are some other signs of life or civilization besides landscapes? We might find mats, we might find people coming in and out of a business, we may find a porch swing, potted plants, all kinds of little wind chimes. In industrial buildings, I may also hear the fan letting me know that I'm getting towards the back of a building, or I may even notice the smell of that lovely, lovely trash dumpster that they keep in the back. So I'm going to continue on. Now, there's a very, very distinct sound change. First of all, that's very solid. All of a sudden, this sound is incredibly hollow. So hollow can only be a couple of things: windows and doors. So how do I decide if this is a window or a door? I'm going to approach it, and I'm going to put my cane in a vertical position. I'm going to begin to slide it across. And then I can use my short cane technique again to use the handle to catch that. make it very easy to go inside. I want to make sure that I'm always using my cane as that barrier between me and the obstacle. The goal is to try to keep our hands at our sides. Number one, it's a safety thing. If I'm using my hand to trail, somebody comes through, I'm very likely to get pinched. The other thing is, it doesn't look cool. We are not paid to be window washers here at Utah State University. And I tell all of my students, I want you to make this cane look good, just like Will Smith says in Men in Black. You may have to edit that if there's any royalties that we may owe them. So let's say that I don't find this handle. Well, all of a sudden that sound has changed, and I'm thinking to myself, man, the sound has changed, as well as I'm back out into the sun. So I no longer have that shadow, which might leave an overhang. Also, the sun is on my left cheek. I'm not facing west anymore, because if I were facing west, I should have felt the sun behind me before I turned towards that door. Last clue that I'm noticing is there's that sound of the generator. So if I were to keep going, all of a sudden that generator has gotten closer and closer to me. I don't want to do that. That isn't the sound of civilization. So I'm going to go back. I notice that it gets closed up again. I'm in my shadow, and I return to the door. As we enter into a door, I want to make sure that I always clear my path, because I don't want to find out that there's somebody else there that I'm competing with as I go inside. Now, as we exit, I can hear that it's hollow. I'm going to use my cane once again, clear my path. As I make my escape, I find the sun. It lets me know that I'm heading east again. As I approach an intersection, I'm looking for traffic. We use the word looking. We don't always use the word listening, so don't change your vocabulary when talking to blind or visually impaired people. It gives me a clue as to how far I have to go before I really need to stop. I'm also interested in how much traffic is flowing. I know that 700 North is a busier street, so it may help me in deciding that I have indeed gone the right way, or wow, I wasn't looking for a busy street. I'm either not there yet, or I've gone the wrong direction. I'm going to begin working my way up, and I'm looking for the edge of the road where the sidewalk meets and the asphalt occurs. I'm looking for a texture change as well as an elevation change, and I have it. Once I get to the corner, I'm now going to do some listening. I want to figure out, do I have a control here? A control refers to a stop sign or a traffic light. Don't hear anything there. I hear a car coming next to me. He sounds a little close. I'm going to swing my cane behind me. And I'm going to swing my cane behind me one more time, just to make sure I can clear my path, because he sounded a little closer than where I wanted him to be. When I approached that corner, I was looking for two things. A gentle sloping down, which is what I felt, letting me know I've approached a ramp, as opposed to an actual drop off of my cane, letting me know I've hit the edge of a curb where there might be a step down. I'm also looking for that texture change between the concrete and the asphalt, which I felt. I may notice an elevation change if I've gone too far. The crowning of the street refers to this idea that the street goes up, flattens out in the middle, and continues down into the gutter line. We need to make sure that water can get off the streets. That is the best feeling. As I cross over that street, I go up, feel flat, and that downward motion says, yes, I am almost to the other side. It's really exciting as an instructor to watch your students have that moment. You can almost feel their excitement when they feel that crown going down, because they're almost home. As I've been standing here, I have not noticed consistently that traffic is stopping. That lets me know that this is an uncontrolled street. College would be a pretty common place to have what we call pedestrian crossing, and that is where the pedestrian has the right of way when and if they approach the intersection, and they let the drivers know. So in order to signal to a driver that I'm ready to cross the street, I'm going to do two things. I'm going to make contact by looking at him. In this case, my traffic that's my closest to me, my near perpendicular, is coming from my west side. So that's the first one I'm going to be looking towards and looking for. My other traffic off to my opposite side is coming from the east, and that's my far perpendicular traffic. I need to make sure he's stopped too on this uncontrolled crossing, but I won't be able to make his eye contact quite as easy as I might notice the guy off to my other side. So at an uncontrolled crossing, I need one of two things to happen. I need to have consistent silence, that it happens pretty frequently, to be able to decide, yeah, this is a good place where I could cross an uncontrolled crossing. Or I need to have myself in a situation where I can engage and stop the drivers consistently. Because there is a thing called an uncrossable crossing. The traffic never stops and you can't make it stop, or you don't notice that it stops often enough. So I'm going to come back up to where I felt like the very beginning of my crossing is, and I'm going to extend my cane. I hear drivers stop to my right. I hear traffic. Sounds pretty clear on that side. I'm going to begin my cross. I feel the ramp going up in that crossing. I can also hear the building begin to increase. I feel the crown going down. And then I let the drivers know that I appreciate their help. Thanks for joining me outside for that little adventure. There are a couple things that I think about when I'm outside as a traveler, and that is what a gift it's been able to be to talk to all of you about what independent travel looks like. Remember, this isn't something that happened to me overnight. It took a lot of hours of practice and a lot of trial and error. You, the professionals, or you, the travelers, need to understand one very important thing, and that is everybody is going to be different. What works for me and my students may not work for other blind travelers. There may be travelers that have other experiences that we can draw from. So when meeting people, don't be afraid to chat with them. Do we have other interests besides getting around? Sure. But it's okay to ask us questions while we're out and about, or simply just sitting back and watching and allowing that process to gently unfold. It really is an exciting opportunity to be able to do something by yourself, whether it's go out and get a gallon of milk, whether it's being able to travel around your college campus, maybe taking your son or daughter out in a stroller and walking with that cane and being able to go around. But nobody's going to do it the same. Just like nobody is going to learn at the same pace. Sometimes we have students who may, for one reason or another, need to come back into training, even though they've had many, many hours of training before that, and that's okay. The goal is just to simply put me out of a job, and that's to get people to travel by themselves wherever they want, whenever they want, without inconveniencing themselves or others. You can reach me, Jennifer Kennedy, at the State Office of Rehabilitation, Division of Services for the Blind and Visually Impaired, 801-323-4343. You can also come find us on Facebook, Division of Services for the Blind and Visually Impaired. Lastly, there's this good old thing called Google. Don't be afraid to Google Jennifer Kennedy. You never know what you might find. Thanks.